In 1950, Hall of Fame third baseman George Kell led the American League in both hits with 218 and doubles with 56. He finished fourth in American League batting with a batting average of .340, and he also finished that season fourth in MVP voting. During the previous season, 1949, Kell went 2 for 3 on the very last day of the season to beat out Ted Williams for the American League batting title. After his outstanding season of 1950, Kell kept right on going in 1951. He again led the American League in both doubles and hits, and this time finished with a batting average of .320. In all, Ken was a 10-time All-Star that batted over 300 9 times and finished in the top 10 for MVP voting 3 times. For the decade, Kell hit 60 home runs with over 500 RBIs. He scored nearly 500 runs, and his batting average for the decade was .308. Despite having already been in my best third baseman's video of the 1960s and having only played 5 seasons in the 1950s, the 6th best third baseman of the 1950s goes to St. Louis Cardinal Ken Boyer. Boyer broke into the major leagues with the Cardinals in 1955, and in his very first game, he hit an 8th-inning 2-run homer off Chicago Cub pitcher Paul Minner. That rookie season for Ken Boyer was far from his best, but already by 1956, he was making the All-Star team for the Cardinals with 26 home runs, 98 RBIs, and a .306 batting average. Boyer hit 300 or better during 4 of the next 5 seasons, and by 1959 he was considered one of the best players in the league, not only for his dangerous bat, but also for his excellent fielding skills. In the 1950s alone, Boyer hit 114 home runs, he had over 400 RBIs, he had over 400 runs scored, his batting average for the decade was .291, and he won the first 2 ever Gold Gloves awarded to the third baseman. And the 5th best third baseman of the 1950s was Ray Boone. Ray started his major league career in 1948 with the World Series champion Cleveland Indians. By 1954, and now playing for the Detroit Tigers, and thanks in part to his 26 home runs, including 4 grand slams the previous season, he was the highest paid baseball player in Detroit, making $25,000 a year. Twice during the decade, Boone had over 110 RBIs during a season, including his league-leading 116 in 1955, and then 4 times during the decade his batting average was .295 or better. His 1950s totals included 2 All-Star appearances, 146 home runs, nearly 700 RBIs, nearly 600 runs scored, and a batting average of .277. Willie JOnes of the Philadelphia Phillies was the best fielding third baseman during the 1950s, and he was not too shabby swinging a bat either. Jones led all third basemen in fielding percentage 6 times, he led them in putout 7 times, he led them in assists twice, and he led them in double plays twice. In 1950, which was likely Jones' best season, and with a .267 batting average, he had 25 home runs with 88 RBIs, scored 100 runs, and led the Whiz Kids of Philadelphia to their first World Series appearance since 1915. For the decade, Jones made the National League All-Star team twice. He hit 169 home runs, scored over 700 runs, had another over 700 RBIs, and had a batting average of .259. And then probably the best fielding third baseman of the American League was Washington National Eddie Yost. Yost led All-American League third basemen in putout 7 times, he led them in fielding percentage twice, and he led them in assists twice. Yost was blessed with a strong arm and good range, but he was one of the best leadoff hitters of his era. His on-base percentage for the entire decade was over 400, and he twice led the league in on-base percentage. Yost had a real knack for drawing walks. He had over 100 walks per season 7 times. 5 of those 7 times he led the league, including 1956 when he had over 150 bases on balls. Well, Although Yost probably did not get the credit that he deserved playing with that forever cellar dweller Washington Nationals, his very excellent on-base percentage and his great fielding skills ranks him as the third best third baseman of the 1950s. Okay guys, there's two more to go, and this is usually when I slip in a couple of honorable mentions, but I could not find anybody beyond these seven that were worth talking about for more than a few seconds. So maybe I missed somebody, forgot somebody. If you know of anybody that deserves an honorable mention, please shout them out in the comments. And the second best third baseman of the 1950s, and it's despite having only played 7 seasons during the decade, goes to Cleveland Indian Al Rosen. In Rosen's rookie season of 1950, he hit 37 home runs, which was an American League record at the time, and it would not be broken until 1987 when a guy named Mark McGwire came along. That same season of 1950, Rosen also hit 287 with 115 RBIs and 100 runs scored. Al Rosen would top all of those numbers in 1953 when he again led the league in home runs, this time with 43. He also led the league in RBIs with 147. He led the league in runs scored with 115, and his batting average of .336 placed him second for the batting title, and that season he was named the American League MVP. For the decade, Rosen, again in only 7 seasons, had 192 home runs, scored nearly 600 runs, had over 700 RBIs, and his batting average was .287. By far the best third baseman of the 1950s, and honestly it's not even close, Milwaukee Brave Eddie Mathews. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you might remember that Eddie Mathews was also the third best third baseman of the 1960s, and his numbers for the 1950s are even more eye-popping. Mathews hit at least 25 home runs every single season in the 1950s, and 4 times he hit over 40 home runs, including 1959 and 1953 when he hit totals of 46 and 47. In the 1950s alone, Eddie Mathews scored 100 or more runs 5 times. He had 100 or more RBIs 4 times. On top of all that, he hit .289 or better 5 times. And except for his rookie season of 1952, he had at least 80 walks every single season. It's a little bit more than amazing to me that he never won an MVP award, but he was the MVP runner-up twice. For the decade, Mathews had 299 home runs, nearly 800 RBIs, over 800 runs scored, and a batting average of .281.